Hello, dear ones. Father Peter John coming to you from All Saints Orthodox Church in Bloomington, Indiana. Christ is in our midst. Today we're talking about step 4 on the ladder of divine ascent from the book by St. John of the Ladder of the same name. We are talking about obedience today. In the beginning, God created Adam and Eve. He put them in the garden. They had plenty to eat, everything they could want. He gave them an obedience. He said, "Do not eat of the fruit of the tree of good and evil." He gave them an obedience. Well, eventually, we don't know how long it took. People speculate on that. But eventually, Eve took the fruit from the tree, and when she was tempted by the serpent, and she disobeyed God. She ate it, and she gave it to Adam, and he disobeyed God when he ate it. And we've been disobedient ever since. The church is the hospital of souls. Christ is our beloved physician. And so in the church, we are being healed. Being healed is part of being saved. And so when we are given opportunities to be obedient in the church and in life, we are being given opportunities to be healed. And so this whole chapter by St. John is on obedience. Now, obedience in the monastery looks a little bit different than obedience in the parish and in our life in the world. I'll give you kind of an extreme example of obedience in the monastery. You'll find a number of extreme examples in this book, which is why, as much as I love it, I don't recommend people read it without first consulting their spiritual father. It's a heavy read. But there is this one man in the monastery, and the abbot of the monastery desires to show others in the monastery what true obedience looks like. And so when this old man comes and he prostrates himself before the door of the abbot to receive his evening directions or directives, the abbot ignores him. And he leaves him there, lying prostrate on the ground, until, it says, the time of the midnight office. So probably 5 or 6 hours. This man is lying on the ground on his face, waiting to talk to the abbot. Well, the abbot eventually comes out as he's getting ready to go to the church to pray the midnight office. And he sees him lying there, and he rebukes him for making such a show of himself and for being so impatient. And they go off together to the church. Well, later on, one of the disciples of this old monk who had lay there for all that time, he goes to him and he says, "Did you fall asleep while you were there?" And the old monk told him, "No, I recited the Psalter, 151 Psalms, by heart while I was lying prostrate there." He used his time for holiness and for good. And he gained sanctity in that opportunity for obedience to his abbot. Now, we don't do these things in the parish. It doesn't look like that in the parish. It shouldn't look like that in the parish. These are men who have left everything to go to the monastery and to excel in these most difficult spiritual exercises. In the parish, we have things like fasting, the obedience to the fasting rules of the church, obedience to our daily prayer rule, obedience to, if we are in a family situation, one who has a wife and kids or a husband and children, etc., has to be obedient to a certain type of family rule or things won't get done, right? Everybody's got their part. There are things that they do. There's an obedience there. And so in keeping that for the sake of Christ and for the sake of love for one another, we're growing in our knowledge of God, in our obedience to God by learning to be obedient to those whom he has placed in our life. So step 4 on obedience from St. John Climacus, the ladder of divine ascent. O Lord, grant us to learn obedience. Christ is in our midst. he is and ever shall be.